You had all these people go to college. They did not learn critical thinking skills. What they learned was that, listen, if we pay lip service to the right platitudes, then we will have career advancement. And now they're learning that that may not be true. And actually, the person who's pulled the mask off this entire regime is none other than SBF. And he did it in an interview with Vox. And we have to go to this, okay?
This is deranged.
He said he's the devil, but he basically pulled the mask off this whole civilizational quid pro quo that is a sham, okay? And here's what he said, that the Vox reporter said, you were really good about talking about ethics for someone who kind of saw it all as a game with winners and losers. What did SBF said? Yeah, I had to be. It's what reputations are made of to some extent. I feel bad for those who get fucked by it. Basically, all these people who incurred $250,000 in debt and think they can just spouse the right, platitudes. He says, by this dumb game we woke Westerners play where we say all the right shit below us so everyone likes us. How stupid does the New York Times feel right now? How stupid do all these nonprofits and foundations who received all this money from SBF, he played them. All he had to do was say the right words, say the magic woke words, and they would basically cover for the most enormous grift that's ever been perpetrated. That is basically the quid pro quo of our civilization, is be woke and you will have indefinite career opportunities, no matter how unmarketable
virtue signaling would be another way to say it. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be the woke ideology, but virtue signal and give donations to people. This has been a playbook of grifters for a long time. Bernie Madoff gave a ton of, donations, and he used the same playbook.
How many donations did he give to the Republican Party? None. They're not part of the regime. How many conservative causes?
I'm not sure this is a political. I don't know that this is left versus right.
I'm not making a political point. I'm making a cultural point.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Who were the charities that he donated to? It was all the right woke causes. Not, it was
the
not.
The pandemic one was not woke. He was passionate about the pandemic stuff.
Are you kidding me? Freaking out about the pandemic?
No. He wanted to do pandemic prevention, as he explained it to me.
The neurosis. It was the
no. That was not what he was funding, Sachs. I actually talked to him about this when I interviewed him. He said he wanted to do pandemic prevention and early warning systems, and wanted to invest in strategies to fight the next pandemic.
Listen, and definitely freaking out about COVID was a central neurosis of the professional managerial class for the last couple of years. It is,
but that's not what he was funding. I just want to make that point. Yeah.
Whatever.
He wanted to do prevention. I mean, you could frame it as not, but I actually literally talked to him about it. He wanted to do pandemic prevention in the future.
He wanted to steal money. Your point. No. He wanted to steal money from California taxpayers via a ballot initiative to fund his brother's organization, which would have dispersed the money in who knows what ways, probably not legitimate, out of a professed concern about the next pandemic. Why? Because the PMC is neurotic about the last pandemic. Come on. This is all
you're saying
part
he's pandering to them. I understand what your point is.
Of course, thank you. It's pandering.
Okay, I understand.
It's absolutely pandering. Now, listen, why? Well, hold on a second. Why did this work? Why did this woke virtue signaling work? And again, why were they only charities and causes that appeal to the sort of the left? It's because they're the ones with the power in our society and in our culture to define what virtue is. When you're virtue signaling, who are you signaling to? The people with the power to decide what is virtue and what is vice.
Right.
That is why people go to work at the New York Times. That is why they basically go into, all these influential jobs at nonprofits and foundations. They're the ones deciding what virtue is. They're the dupes. They're the ones who are fooled. And now what's happening is there's an economic consequence to it, which is it is coming out. These people have no marketable skills and companies are tightening their belts. And now all of a sudden, they're starting to become deeply insecure about their own future.
My comment is that, when you look at Twitter as an example, Bill Gurley had a really powerful quote as well, which is when companies cut, they don't cut nearly enough and they misestimate and underestimate how resilient a company is. Back in, Twitter had 200 million MAU. They had only 1,000 employees. And so clearly at that point, they knew what they were doing. And now the business has increased in MAU by, call it 50% to 300 million, but the employee base increased by 7.5x. So clearly something is misaligned. And I think the thing that, people are going to find out is,
by the way, with contractors, probably 12x.
Right. So I think that, well, there you go. So I think that the thing that frustrates a lot of folks that are leaving or that are trying to throw bombs is they don't want Elon to be right. Because I think to David's point, if Elon is successful, he has uncovered this very uncomfortable truth that was frankly hiding in plain sight, which is that many of these technology companies using technology get so much operational leverage that they have some enormous efficiencies. And then it's only a decision by the professional managerial class to reward themselves with fiefdoms and kingdoms of employees and, the serfs that work for them. I mean, it's really quite crazy if you think about it.
Well, Friedberg made this, early on in the history of this podcast. Friedberg said something that, well, hold on, I want to add to your position. Friedberg said something that adds to your position, which is early in this podcast, he said, the nature of organizations is they want to grow. And that's government or even these departments you're talking about. Anybody who runs a department is never going to say, my department needs to be 20% less so we can hit the bottom line. They're going to say, give me 20% more because everybody else is getting 20%. Go ahead, Chamath, continue.
And then if you layer in the Charlie Munger quote, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome, you can understand why, because the professional managerial class is rewarded by compensation that is actually independent of dilution, right? Because if you look at these compensation plans, all of these professional stock owners, they complain all the time about stock-based comp, right? And these companies have budgets between 2 and 5% a year that they give away. And so you have this situation where an engineer or an engineering manager or a sales manager or a marketing manager in success at 1,000 people can grow to 5,000 or 10,000. Their compensation doesn't change. In any other organization, their compensation would change because let's say that it's a percentage of the profits that are distributed. Unless the company is phenomenally growing, eventually you'll see it in the bottom line of what you take home. And so these folks are incentivized to have these status signals of value. I have a 50, you guys have heard this. I have a
50-person team. I manage
300-person team. I oversee 3,500 employees. And everybody is conditioned to think, oh my God, that's incredible. You must be really important. And so we're going to sort of now see in real time a questioning of that belief system. And if Elon proves to be right, it's a really important decision point for a lot of other technology companies. Because if you are an 80 to 90% gross margin business built on software, maybe you have a bigger responsibility than you've discovered to date to your shareholders and to the existing employees to find the efficient rate of return, right? What is the efficient frontier of headcount? The other thing is, it now allows, let's just say that now Twitter goes to, I'm making up a number, 2,000 employees after this whole Google form thing. The great thing about the 2001st employee for the 2,000 employees and for the shareholders is that 2001st new employee is 100% aligned because they're coming into something eyes wide open. And I think that that's also an interesting thing that isn't getting enough recognition is he's putting out there what he stands for, this hardcore culture. Irrespective of whether we think it's right or wrong, all the people that stay are voting that it's right. And, as long as it's not breaking any laws, he's allowed to do that. And so if people now want to join that organization, they should be allowed to do that too. Just like the people who don't want to should be allowed to leave.
Sachs, you and I came up and we talked about this, I think on last week's show, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. We talked about what the expectation was in Silicon Valley at a startup, what startup culture was, in terms of just the effort that was required to build a winning company. And we all said 60 hours a week was the baseline. That's something that, has been, I think a lot of people, you mentioned this, Chamath, people working 2 jobs for 30 hours a week and taking 2 salaries from 2 of the FANG companies. I remember
Jake
that 10 episodes
ago.
Go
into TikTok and search for, engineering salaries. You'll see some of the craziest TikToks. Kids are making $350K, working 30 hours a week. It's nuts.
Yeah. And so I think we're going to have a cultural divide here. There are going to be a series of companies that say this is classic Silicon Valley. We're going to crush it. We're going to work aggressively. We're going to put in 50, 60, 70 hours a week, and we're all going to benefit from that. And then there'll be another class of companies that says, hey, no, we want to have a more lifestyle business. And if people want to work 30, 40 hours a week and they contribute, we don't need to be perfectly efficient. And you know what? The playing field of capitalism will show who is right, Sachs.
Yeah, I mean, look, I actually went out of town a few days ago, so I wasn't keeping up with, every detail of what was happening at Twitter. And I started getting all these text messages about how Twitter was dead or dying or whatever, like the site had been unplugged or what have you. And I'm like, what is going on? You tweeted this morning, hey, is this working? And I'm like, yeah, like, yes, it's working. Like, And
I tweeted this morning, is this working? Did anybody get this?
And so
my tweet went through.
So I came to learn what they're talking about is that all Elon did was give a voluntary offer that if you didn't want to stay, you could take 3 months severance. Now, remember, last week they had a RIF, which was basically economically required, in which they gave employees 3 months severance, which is 50% more than what he had to. It was generous. Now, it seems to me that what if you're one of the employees in the other half that made the cut, but yet you're not really motivated to stay, and maybe you don't really want to operate like a startup. I mean, Elon's basically saying we're going to go back to working and operating like a startup. That means that you might have to work nights and weekends like a startup. What if that's not what you signed up for? You may be sitting there at Twitter saying, oh man, I wish I had gotten Rift. Well, now Elon is offering you the opportunity to take the same package. So I'm like, how can this possibly be a bad thing?
It's actually the great management technique that Tony Hsieh, rest in peace, from Zappos created. He would say when people went through their first couple of months of training, he'd say, now, if you don't want this job, I will pay you a month's salary. This is on their first day after they went through training, their first day on the job. He said, okay, now that you've gone through the training, I'll pay you, I think it was $5,000 or $3,000 to not take the job. And something like 1 out of 5 people would do it. And so he said, listen, I don't have to fire them later on. This is going to make my management easier. It is actually a kind thing to do to give people the opportunity to leave.
I don't understand how giving employees an option to opt
because,
out if they're not on board.
Because the reason people are upset, let's be honest, Sachs, is some people, live to work and some people work to live. And the people who are working to live find it crazy that hustle culture even exists. And people who are part of hustle culture, like the 4 people on this podcast, find it crazy.
Hustle culture? It's just working.
Hustle culture is working above the hours you're being paid for. That's basically what hustle culture means. If you're getting paid for 40 hours,
when you're getting paid a salary.
That's how most people would define it.
A salary is actually not you work for 40 hours. A salary means you get your job done.
Okay, that's how we look at it. That is not how other people look at it. And have to...
Oh my God, this is unbelievable.
There's no question that Elon is going to raise the bar.
Can I just say, sorry, if we lose American primacy, it's because of that, not because of debt to GDP.
I agree with you. I'm still man on the other side. I'm still man on the other side. People look at their salary and they look at themselves as getting compensated for 40 hours, and every hour above that,
but do you know how that
this generation's mind looks at as hustle culture?
There are people that are working,
agreeing with it.
There are people that are working 60, 70, 80 hours a week as a teacher to make 30, 40K, firefighters, working on oil rigs. And to hear somebody like hustle culture at a startup where you're making 350 grand and you're upset because the matcha ran out or whatever, it's just so out of touch.
I'm not disagreeing.
Yeah, and look, my view on it is that people need to love their jobs and love what they're working on, because I think the only way to be successful is to work hard, but the only way to work hard and be happy is to really love what you're doing. And if there's a lot of people at this company or others who don't really love it and they are just there to pay the bills or whatever, then I actually think it's extremely generous for Elon to be offering them a package.
It's the right thing to do.
It's the right thing to do. I don't understand how giving them an option was anything but positive, and yet the media has gone berserk on it. Meanwhile, while giving SBS a virtual pass on one of the largest frauds in history, a Madoff level fraud. You read the New York Times.
Alleged.
No, there's no alleged, dude. It's come out. He loaned himself, this is just one data point. He loaned himself $1 billion. And he loaned the head of engineering $500 million off the balance sheet.
Nothing to see here.
What possible justification? And, and SBF in this
David,
interview.
the reason, just say the hard part out loud. The reason why these same publications are not covering this is because they were complicit in his reputation laundering.
Yes.
The New York Times, before that article, put out this other puff piece where they talked to him, and they were excoriated on Twitter because it was not a single question about the fraud or alleged fraud.
Alleged fraud.
Well,
Allegedly,
obviously. I think it's safe
Allegedly
to say that
obviously.
when $10 billion suddenly goes missing and no one knows where it is, I'm willing just to call that a fraud.
You're willing to jump the fence?
They're busy scrambling to sort of save their own reputations, which is why they are trying to hide the cheese effectively and point over here and say, hey, look at what's happening. Elon sent an email with only one button. Yes.
I mean, let's be intellectually honest here.
I love that meme that Elon tweeted out. Do you see that? The 2 rhinos humping?
No, please, no.
It cracked me up so much.
No, don't. Oh, God. You know this is all going to get reblogged.
It's too funny. It's just
too funny.
It's too good.
It's too good to not put up on the screen.
I mean, that nature photographer is the New York Times. It's
okay. Yeah, for people who don't see it, there are two rhinos they're fornicating.
Copulating.
They're copulating. But rhinos copulating is like it's two 2,000-pound animals copulating.
Doggy style.
10 feet behind a nature... Please, Chamath, you make it worse. Behind... I'm trying to be the world's greatest
photographer.
A nature photographer with a $6,000 photo lens that can shoot across the entire Serengeti. But he's 10 feet behind him are the two rhinos. The two rhinos, it says FTX losing over $1 billion of client funds. And the photographer is senators calling for the FTC to investigate
No, but
Twitter.
the important thing is the photographer is pointing in completely the wrong direction.
The wrong direction. He's just totally missing it.
He cannot see the thing that is obviously right in front of his face.
Right.
That he should be photographing.
Yes. He's using that long telephone lens. Hey,
and that is the New York Times. That's Senator Warren. That's the SEC.
Yeah, point the arrow in the right direction. Yes. Point the camera in the right direction is the point. I just want to point out...
Can I read one Balaji tweet in this regard?
Oh, God. Balaji's not capable of one tweet. That's going to be 76 tweets in a storm. But go ahead.
I'm going to pluck... You're right. It's a tweet storm, but it's a really good one.
Of course it's a tweet storm. It's Balaji.
He says, think of a regulator as a binary classifier. What's their false positive and false negative rate? Bitcoin ETF blocked for years. FTX ignored for years. The actual filter is not, is this a scam? The actual filter is this spicy. A gem?
Ooh, spicy.
It's not consumer protection. It's re-election.
Ooh,
by the way, someone needs to make a banger out of that. That's an alliteration.
It rhymes.
Can young Spielberg make a banger out of that?
It is a banger. It's not consumer protection. It's re-election.
Listen, if you are part of these interlocking power structures that we call the regime, it's the New York Times, it's the regulatory state, it's the Democratic Party, you get a big pass.
Republicans.
Hold on, let's be clear.
You get a pass.
Your team now controls the House, and so...
Whose team?
David's team.
Not yet.
Oh, David's team.
Not yet.
I understand, but starting in January, there's any amount of congressional oversight.
How's your Hunter Biden investigation going, Sachs?
So Chamath, let's
How's your Hunter Biden investigation?
Hold on a second. Let me say this right now. The first investigation by the House of Representatives needs to be SBF and FTX, not Hunter Biden. SBF makes Hunter Biden look like a piker. I mean, Hunter Biden was a couple $1 million of grift. This is $10 billion plus a grift. So I think
it also touches regulators. It could touch, it's a big deal.
It's a systemic failure. It's a
Hunter Biden knows how to party. So let's be honest here. I mean, that is the issue. I just think the quote of the week goes to John J. Ray. He's FTX's new CEO. He famously oversaw the liquidation of Enron. And he says, I have over 40 years of legal and restructuring experience. I have been the chief restructuring officer or chief executive officer in several of the largest corporate failures in history. I have supervised situations involving allegations of criminal activity and malfeasance at Enron. Nearly every situation in which I have been involved has been characterized by deficits of some sort in internal controls, regulatory compliance, human resources, and system integrity. Never in my career have I seen such a complete failure of corporate controls and such a complete absence of trustworthy financial information as occurred here. This is the person who oversaw Enron saying this is unprecedented. Enron was the previous unprecedented situation, which is now being framed as manageable by none other than John J. Ray. What a great name. Congratulations on being the chief restructuring officer of FTX.
There was an article that showed, Nick, if you could please throw the picture up on the screen of all the people that invested the universe of SBF. And
oh my God!
And the article headline was, "It's a who's who of VC." And my comment is, actually, no. This list is a who's who of people who did no diligence whatsoever. And I just want to call one person, Nick. If you look at the Alameda Research, this firm called 1inch, JCal invested in a firm named after the length of his penis.
Come on. Maybe coming out of the cold plunge. Okay, but that cold plunge, there's shrinkage, Chamath.
Was that an SPV? Was that an SPV?
1inch SPV. Listen, I'm a shower, I'm a grower, not a shower. All right, listen, you guys everybody knows coming out of the cold plunge, it's not going to be the best performance for any of us.
What a name of a fund!
Why is there a fund called 1inch? Oh God,
what is is that?
We've lost the script on the show. Jesus, please, we got to wrap. I mean, it's just too much.
Do you guys not think that all these investors received audited financials and they had a lawyer, a legal firm that represented these financials?
Did you guys see who FTX's auditing firm was? It's called Prager Metis, and it says it's based in the metaverse. This is like the Hollywood upstairs medical college of the auditing world.
Their address was in Decentraland.
Bernie Madoff, I think his brother-in-law ran the accounting firm that did their audits, right? It was like, and it was in
on a dead floor in the lipstick building.
Yeah, it was in the same building, right?
On the lipstick building, they had like a secret floor with nobody on it.
Look, I mean, even in that case, people relied on an audit from a CPA that said, here are the numbers, and those numbers were fraudulently conveyed. And I think that there's probably some forgiveness necessary here, that there was fraud. Maybe. There may have been serious fraud that took place, and I don't want to be too disparaging of all the smart people that we know that work at these investment firms, made an investment, and they all got duped, and the LPs got duped. And so I don't think this is just fundamentally a failure of diligence.
So we were part of the process where they tried to show. Again, I have to be careful. My lawyers reminded me that we're still under NDA actually with FTX. But what I can tell you is we did not get any financials. So we were verbally described what was going on.
Right. When you asked for it. When you double-clicked on diligence.
We sent a two-pager of stuff. Anyways, I can't say more than that. But
don't get yourself in trouble.